Panditji, it's not only a privilege, but a great pleasure to sit with you today and talk to you about music, about many things that you have experienced in life. And it's your 90th year, you're now 91, in the 91st year. So you've seen so much, you've experienced so much. And as a result of that, you have been a sort of guiding light to all of us younger people, your students and your well-wishers like me, because I did not have the good fortune of learning music from you. So we have with us today Shogato, Sachin, Anupam, all of whom have been studying Sarod with you. And in spiritual presence, we have Leslie Schneider and Sohan Neelkanth. But also, I'm sure, thousands of others who are fascinated by what you do and say. So it's a great pleasure. I'll begin by quoting something that Leslie mentioned to me. Leslie said that you once said, if given more time, I would go more and more towards radiant simplicities. Those simplicities are the product of a lifetime. Simplicity of a kind inevitably happens when you live for a long time with your music. And any durable experience has to arrive into a state of simplicity. Courtship is complex. A durable marriage is simple. Now this wonderful thing, can you talk to us about the simplicity that you are reaching?
This doesn't bear further paraphrase and annotation.
Okay.
It is simple as it is, and I like it. It's very rare that I like my own sentences. This is one of those which, well, I've gone through the right and the wrong end of marriage also. So, courtship, marriage, divorce, everything I know. So I like
So this is the simplicity that all of us would try or would want to reach sometime.
Arrived at, I think, a certain kind of simplicity.
Yes.
Which helps me stay out. The multiplicity that one lives in. Dogs barking, cooks shouting, all that. To live among them and to think of a rag like Maligora is simple.
Can I proceed further?
Yeah.
I remember that Sohan was once telling me that you said that it is a privilege to get a glimpse of the image of a raga in the mind of the maestro. Yeah? And while teaching Kafi, you had explained its nature by a beautiful analogy. You explained that you can't take any liberties with a raga like Marwa, which is like a strict father waiting at the door with a stick, watching the child playing outdoors. If this child does anything naughty, the father won't let him in and will beat him with a stick. But Kafi is like a loving mother. Even if the child has been naughty, she will quietly let him in from the kitchen door and give him some food as well. Now this is a fascinating way of understanding the character of what one is listening to or what you are playing. Would you like to say about these two ragas some more or some other ragas, that there are pictures which hold you steady in that raga?
Why, you see, one of the things that I might have said and I notice now is the effectiveness of the metaphor.
Yes.
Why do we use metaphors?
Yes.
We use metaphors We use images. That was when I, long ago in the last century, when I was an academic, my area of study was images. Gerard Manley Hopkins and then T.S. Eliot. Now, coming to think of it, I might fairly simplicity, say that one anybody uses a metaphor, an image, when he finds explicatory language unsatisfactory. That is all. So I might have used this metaphor, which I like now. I hope you like it too.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Because that's how I can teach. I can feel Rag Kafi and Rag Marwa. That's all.
Yes. Ragadesh shares a profound feeling of melancholy, and the experience of Darbari carries with it the sadness of centuries. And again she said, Ali Akbar Khan Sahab can find the melancholy of any note, the kernel of a raga. Would you like to talk about the melancholy of a note and the kernel of a raga?
This is important for me. I hope you'll see the music students, aficionados, will try to understand what I'm trying to say there. For all kinds of reasons. And in an imprecise way, a very imprecise way of expressing what I want to and cannot, I'm not able to. The weight of centuries of history has built in a kind of melancholy in us, in the people of the subcontinent. I don't believe in terms like nation and all that. I was born in one nation, I'm living in 3 nations now, right? Geography is true, very true. History, a great man called Napoleon I said, history is a lie agreed upon. A certain state is an inalienable part of, etc., which you read in newspapers and so on. Who said so? I say so. All right. So, what did I say? Yeah. That melancholy, connected with the kernel. It's not only the fruit, not only the seed, but the kernel of the seed. The center of centers. Here. If you like, you can call this society, country, subcontinent, anything. Has a shade of that melancholy. It might show itself as a bloodthirsty anger. You're from Ahmedabad. I don't have to say more.
So the melancholy of centuries.
Sadness, savagery. All this come under the melody. All this.
And yet, when we listen to you playing, that melancholy somehow transforms.
That's his blessings. I have nothing. It's Khan Sahib. I have just a bit, I think, of his blessings.
Now, once you mentioned the utterness of sound when you were talking about Ali Akbar Khan Sahib and about Ustad Ali Akbar, Abdul Karim Khan as great examples of that utterness of sound. Is utterness of sound important to generate the intensity of emotion? How important are tonal quality and textures of sound? How would you like to elaborate on this?
This utterness is a term which I haven't heard anywhere. I found myself using it.
Yes.
I don't think you've heard it elsewhere.
No?
I think I took this word from among its other uses, utter despair. One doesn't talk about utter happiness, utter despair. Things which don't make you jump and cheer. Now, what I find in sound, the kind of sound which drew me to my God, Ustad Ali Akbar Khan, is that sound. There is sarod and sarod and sarod, many people who play faster, who play more ragas. Who do somersaults, all that. And here was this man taking a single note or a slight movement, and that's all. And there was something utter about it. Other words, the good, bad, brilliant, I found them insufficient. So I found myself using this word, utter.
Yes.
Utter. Now, is utterness of sound important to generate the intensity of emotion? That is bad language, unimaginative question. I think the mind of the questioner flags a little, and that's what I find there. By now you should know, if you have steeped yourself in the kind of music that Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahib played, Ustad Abdul Karim Khan Sahib sang, Piya bin nahi, avat chai. You should know, you would know, that there are no one-to-one connections. Does this give that? No, you don't ask that question. I don't know. I don't think there is. How important are the tonal qualities and textures of sound? They are very important, especially when you realize that most Indian instruments don't have a tonal quality to speak about. They are pleasant and they allow you to do things there. And there are different kinds of tone. That sound, the sound of the sarangi, the sound of the sitar. But in one instrument, if there are shades of sound, that's tone. That is tone. And among Indian instruments, to my knowledge, tone became or was made important by Khan Sahib, Ustad Ali Akbar Khan. And some of us, a very few of us realize that. Many of us think that a fast sapatatan or a somersault are big achievements. I might tell you, once I asked Khan Sahib a question which at a distance looks like a silly cliche to me. I asked him, Baba, I used to call him Baba, you lived this long life, what did you want to do? What did you want to do with this music? And he, in his fashion, didn't have to think for ages. With a frown on his face and a hand on his chin now, he said, I have tried to go from ni to sa. That's what I have tried to do. All of us go from ni to sa. I go, you go, all of us. But only sometimes, maybe 4 or 5 times, I really had the satisfaction of the absolute rightness. He didn't know that term. Something which conveyed that. The absolute rightness of this note and that note and the journey.
Wow.
I just shut up in shame.
Ni to sa. Ni to sa.
Ni to sa.
Wow. So this brings us to Leslie's question, where she reminded me that you have a love for and of resonance with the sound and the tonal quality of Abdul Karim Khan, whom you had adored from childhood, and the inexplicable wonder of Ali Akbar Khan. And you said his, that is Ali Akbar Khan Sahib's, is one of total tonal intelligence, just as there is emotional intelligence. Do you see a connection with your feeling for the tonal quality of Abdul Karim Khan Sahib and
Yeah.
Ali Akbar?
Now, most of you are not acquainted with the voice of Khan Sahib, Abdul Karim Khan. Since I've been on this planet for longer time than you, and my father was sensible enough to give me a whole set of Abdul Karim Khan gramophone records, and he taught me how to wind a gramophone and how to place the sound box on the gramophone record very delicately so that it doesn't scratch. And I was doing all these things when I was about 4. I couldn't read, but I could see the subtle distinctions between the color of one record and the other record. So when my father asked me, play Jamna Ke Teer, I would. Play Piya Bir Nahi, I would. And they were on different records with a slight, very, very slight. And those things become very significant if you are illiterate. Or a little mark there, or something like that. For a hasty, unimaginative listener, Abdul Karim Khan Sahab's voice, you can even, so I've heard people jumping to come, oh, he's got a female voice. A little higher than what would you call the usual Indian tenor. He did not use courage very much for obvious reasons. Unlike Ustad Fayyad Khan Sahab, each one suits this voice, his or her voice. The body becomes very important, is very important. I've grown into the body over my lifetime. Less and less in all that thing about cloud spiritualism and all that. I know this body. Today, if I want to walk, I'll fall down. So somebody has to hold me. And things like that. You might have you go listen to Abdul Karim Khan Sahab. With his limited possibilities in the courage area, with whatever he has, he sang his Darbari, Aab Hogi Kanra. Listen to that and mark the tone. Everybody sings a nice note. If you don't sing a good note, the dogs will come after you. But the tone that the man produced, listen to these two things in particular. Inexplicable wonder. Can anybody tell me about an explicable wonder? If something is a wonder, it's always inexplicable.
Yes.
And by the time you anatomize it, the wonder is gone. The life is gone. Right? So, well, I don't know. I can't answer that. Now, the tonal intelligence.
Yes.
The tonal intelligence, it's a good combination that Leslie has thought about. You switch on to your YouTube, you find a whole lot of virtuosic musicians and throwing around their virtue just anywhere and everywhere. Somebody knows how to feels quite homely, quite at home with taan making. Well, you go right into it. You forget about the purity of the note. And what you're left with is only an unnecessary earthquake in a voice. I don't want to give names. You know what I mean. That intelligence that he had, what Leslie means there, was, put it simply, where to apply what. And that requires, I'm saying something which is an apparent contradiction, it's not. An instinctive thoughtfulness. It came automatically to him. It hasn't come to his disciples or their disciples. Good singers, but quite often they sing pointlessly. They go on and on and on. That man had that.
Instinctive.
Khan Sahib had the same thing. There are other Khan Sahib, Ali Akbar Khan Sahib. And Khan Sahib also, when he goes, his sorrow is not anything very special. It is sorrow like mine or somebody else's. But in his hands it becomes a magical instrument. Why? Because that man is the first, certainly the first, in my knowledge. I've heard pre-Ali Akbar Khan sarods, which were like staccato drums, and as a child, I used to scream and run away. I used to ask my parents to stop it, stop it. Big people, great names. And in fact, I went to listen to Pandit Ravi Shankar. I just adored his music. I still am a very ardent admirer of Panditji. And in those days, it used to be advertised in the papers, Deccan Herald. And I took a friend, a young lady. So in those days, you have to take her father also and buy both tickets. To listen to Panditji, I wanted to, what I thought, introduce her to the best in this music and Panditji. And there was Ustad Ali Akbar Khan. With a sarod, I said, now, where have I come, oh God? A bald man. I didn't bother about how he walked or how he just came waddling along. And in his fashion, he tuned his instrument. He had a beautiful way of tuning those tarabs. And then they played Puriya Kalyan. He just took off. And this universe fell silent and listened to him. That was the moment which was epiphanic for me. My whole life changed. I just gave up everything that I wanted to do. Well, if you're a good student in your university, then you have ideas. I just wanted to sit at his feet and learn whatever I could, if he gave it to me. He came for one concert, then they played 4 concerts. One in the YMCA, one in the military had cylindrical places which they call Nissan huts, in one of those Nissan huts. And one more concert again at the town hall. And he was, I couldn't describe, I can't describe. I have become a little more careful with my English now than I was then. And perhaps I've increased my store and discrimination in the use of English words. So I like the word tonal intelligence. When you use that word, you also look for it in his performance. I don't know. If you ask me to look for that tonal intelligence, where one note is not only that note, but it has a richness of tone there. And the next note doesn't have that. The next note is the next note, and the tone is different. Yeah. And the movement is divine, is blessed, is epiphanic. That's right.
It's difficult to continue a conversation after an epiphany, but we will have to, has been described. So, Sohan asked, you have been talking about the importance of the layer of unfolding musical ideas and the performer remaining deeply engaged with the act to be able to engage the audience as well. That means the layer of the raga being unfolded. Is there any awareness of this while performing, if things are going well or not? How does the whole thing work? You're unfolding a raga at your pace.
Well, this assumes a certain competence.
Yes.
If you don't have that competence, you're still dealing with managing your basics. Like whether your thing is in tune or not, and whether your finger is in the right place or not. But once you do have that competence, there's the raga and there's you. What do you want to do with it? If you're not, I use the word intelligent that way, in a very broad sense. If you're unimaginative, in our own gharana there are people who I think either don't have that kind of intelligence or don't use the intelligence they have. And they are very, very competent. Competent is not a good word. They are virtuosic. And they throw it around as nobody's business. It has to be your business. It is not nobody's business. It has to be your business. When you are playing something, when you are singing something, it's your business to see what's happening, where it is going. And that's where laya comes in. Laya is not only, people don't understand. I hope I'm not sounding very vain. No, that's not my intention. Laya is not only a matter of tal. Of course it has to be there. But in other things also, alap, jod is all there. Now, one might say somewhat imprecisely that you find this concept of lay spread into everything, every part of a performance, in the Drupadism of our music. And the Khayal singers didn't always care that much for it. Some people did more, some people did not so much, some people no. And the other Thumri singers, Tappa, it's a different notion of lay. That's not what met here. How to check whether a thing is going well or not? If you are a performer, you know. Any performer, you know, especially if it's not going well, you just want to run away from the stage, and you cannot. The organizer is waiting for you with a stick. Once I played somewhere and I snapped my strings 11 times, and that instrument became a bomb. You touch it and it snaps. So I apologized to the audience, and steeped in shame, I went and stayed. I had to sleep somewhere, and that man found that I was very embarrassed. A British council, and he was very fond of Indian classical music. He took me home, and he played Fayyaz Khan Sahab, Abdul Karim Khan Sahab, Ali Akbar Khan's records for me. He said, Rajeev, listen to it. And I went to sleep.
Shogato was curious about something. Maybe Shogato, you could ask.
Yes, Guruji, I have a question. Mid is what you call the lifeblood of music. And you state that it is not only the notes, but the connections between them also.
Yeah.
That is vitally important, what you describe as sur or sur ko jodne ka tarika. Does the use of staccato notes in instrumental music alter the importance of mid?
What is that sentence? Does the use of staccato notes in instrumental music alter the importance of mid? Well, I don't know. But what I would like you to notice, myself to notice, is that is the unique importance of the journey between note and note. You don't hit a note, you enter a note. You enter and you exit. You don't hit and or shut up. No. Your own experience of our music. This is how I introduce this music to non-Indians, people who haven't had the experience of this music. Jol kothay, Ajay. জীবটা জুতো হয়ে যাচ্ছে হ্যাঁ সো ta-da ta-da-da ta-da is the meaning of a very small, insignificant murgi. And then if you are a serious listener of this music or practitioner, you're looking forward to that. A very good filmmaker also a Drupat musician, Manikal. I headed the department of music there, and he was in the States at that time. I invited him. I'm the host. I was the host. For a period. And in one of his lectures, he said, the core of this music is not in this note or that note, but the journey in between, which is fantastic. Which is fantastic. So, no matter how good a person, how good an orchestra is, this music cannot be played adequately in a brass band orchestra.
Yes. Quite.
Now, the other part of the question, does it reduce or does it alter the importance of the non-meaned type? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. I haven't given much thought to it. But same Abdul Karim Khan Sahab's use of syllables.
Yes.
Hindustani vocal music normally does not use syllables. It uses akar. It was left to Abdul Karim Khan Sahab, who had that eclectic kind of desire. How much he succeeded or not, I don't know. It depends on the listener. He started the use of notes. And there is that fabulous tan in Piya Bin Nai. Go back and listen to it, you'll know what I mean. It comes as a sudden contrast to everything else that he's doing. And it's very beautiful. Yes, and again, he knew he had that intelligence of proportion. I've heard musicians, Hindustani musicians, just sinking into the use of syllables. Tons of syllables. In the meanwhile, the music has gone home. Abdul Karim Khan Sahab had that. Ali Akbar Khan Sahab also had that.
Guruji, one of the specialties of your sarod playing is bolkari, wherein you use the patterns, you favor the use of patterns of fives and sevens, which is, to my mind, is unusual in sarod, even in sitar. And I also have learned that you had the fortune of learning from Ustad Allaraka Khan Sahab.
Not learning so much as serving him.
Yes, sir.
Serving him. I had to get him his tandoori rotis. Serve him in every way.
Yeah, go on.
All right.
Is there an influence of Khan Sahab's?
Well, I don't know. But I wouldn't deny. I wouldn't deny. In fact, you have been my student for some time. How many years?
10 years.
10 years. In these 10 years, you've seen the change. Now these days I use No. Cross rhythming, cross rhythm. And this is very a prime characteristic of Khan Sahib, Allah Rakha Khan Sahib. He didn't teach me that, but I was drawn to it. I was drawn to it. And he would practice. I mean, that was my privilege. He stayed there where I stayed and he practiced there. If you are privy to the practice of music in somebody, then that's your privilege. You can listen to somebody buy a ticket, like my Khan Sahib said, "Humne ticket kharidi hai," on some other occasion. If you're privy to that, that's your privilege. That's where the musician is struggling with his own shortcomings. He is trying out things. In a performance, he is trying to project what's best in him, what kind of makeup he should. I know musicians who are men using rouge and lipstick. Big people, very big people. I've seen them doing it. Anyway, well, they also had a face which could take all that. Mine won't.
Sure. Fortunately.
So I didn't understand. I didn't learn the Tal Adhyayam. I was overhearing him. I would bring tandoori roti, mishti doi. For me, idhar ja, wo liya, udhar ja, ye liya, idhar rakha. But he was over time. Once, I mean, it's a very lovely experience for me. A very great musician's son, who also was a prominent young musician, came to visit. Khan Sahib, Allah Rakha Khan Sahib. And Allah Rakha Khan Sahib said, come tomorrow, रात का खाना यही खाना. Next day he came, and Khan Sahib himself had cooked something for him. He had made me help with the cooking. And then that man came, sat there, and I served the food to Allah Rakha Khan Sahib and that man. They liked the food, the flavor, all that. After food, Allah Rakha Khan Sahib called me, "Arey Taranath idhar aa." And he made me sit next to him, and that man was sitting at that distance. Then Allah Rakha Khan Sahib gave a kind of question, a testing question. I forget exactly the details now. In so many matras, make a tal. By which he meant it must have the first part, it must have a sum, and it must have a khali. Show everything very clearly. And it's not from a firm, fixed beat to another firm, fixed beat. No. Somewhere in the middle, it would stop. And you should be able to go back. And the circle must be okay. Karo. I happen to do it. I happen to do it. If you ask me to do it now, I don't know, I've forgotten it. said, फिर से कहो. That was his way. He was not going to ask me to play because I was not practicing tabla. फिर से कहो. I said, फिर से कहो दोबारा. So 3 times. And then now he said, तुम करो. He couldn't do it. That was a bad day for him. He would go beyond the sun or before the sun. Do it again? No. Do it again? No. Then Khan Sahib turned towards me. तुम पंजाबी समझते हो? And I told him, जी नहीं. Punjabi you can understand, it's quite near Hindustan. And he fell on him like a ton of bricks. Oh God. He was a young man, fair fellow, went on turning red in his cheeks, chubby fellow. And when he had finished his stream of abuse, he said, "Hey, Taranath, taxi le aa, inko usme bithao." So at night I went out and got a ambassador taxi, which is famous in Calcutta. Everybody, including the bugs in your house, use an ambassador. In Bombay, they use Fiats. And I poured water on his hands to wash his hands. And that man was looking, he could have burnt me with his eyes. He just wanted me dead, I think. Oh. Opened the door for him and banged the door shut and the taxi. And 2 days later, Akbar Khan Sahib had watched me eating there, in that house. And that food was the simplest for me. The cook, Komoda, mischievous lady, very mischievous. She would create a quarrel between any 2 people or between 2 sides of the wall. That kind of woman. She would make a roti for me, what you call pulkas. And she would leave them in the open and go away. And cockroaches would come and settle on the roti. And I would be in Khan Sahab's house, his house, all that and all, come back home, go to the kitchen, wish the cockroaches good night and eat those pulkas. And Allah Khan Sahib had seen me doing it because that room was right next to the kitchen. So 2 days later, Khan Sahib, that's the reward for doing the dal right, Arey Taranath, तुम मेरे साथ खाना खाओ. दोपहर का खाना. अरे दास, my host, Prabhat Kumar Das. अरे दास, तुम भी आ जा. So the 3 of us went in a taxi, had lunch. That's it. And he had some drink. It's a very unique experience, which I treasure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, these are so many journeys of.
You've been, who just gone?
This is a question from Sohan Bhai.
From Sohan?
Yes. I have been tasked to ask this question.
Yeah.
That you have been interested in the possibilities of being creative in a rule-bound medium, in the balance between known and unknown of a raga. in the balance between the possibilities of the instrument and the restrictions of a raga. Would you like to
That's
talk
not a
about,
good sentence, anyway.
would you like to talk about how to reconcile such opposing demands of known and unknown?
This is your question.
Sohan Bhai's question.
Sohan Bhai. Transaction. You know.
Yes, sir.
When Lata Mangeshkar, Muhammad Rafi, they sing very beautiful songs, Kishore Kumar. Supposing you want a change there, do you have a right to say, nahin, ye zara aisa gaiye? He'll use his shoe for that purpose. Next moment you won't be there in that hall. निकल जाए इधर से. कौन होता है तू मुझसे कहने के लिए? In other words, he has every right over that song. Whether it's coming well or ill is his business. I have no right over that song, or the rara, or the tune. Whereas, if you want to play Bhopali to me, and you Sari Gama, nahin zara, please, rukiye, Dana. You're a wonderful singer, but it's not Bhopali. Please give me the name of this rag. Why do you say that? I mean, any and everybody cannot say that. You should know that raga. You should have the same knowledge of that raga as that man has. At least you should know Bhopali does not have ma and ni. It's a transaction between the encoder, who is the artist, and the decoder, who is the listener. Now that same rule that is what is very, very, very important, crucial there, is that two people, at least two people, understand that corpus, not corpse, corpus, in exactly the same way. A rupee note lying in front of these two people means exactly the same to both. You go to America and you take out your wallet and take out the bills. One of them is a rupee bill. In America, you put it there, you have a full right over it, and the other fellow thinks you're a fool. Get out, what's this piece of paper? That's what I mean by transaction. Any transaction, the two people, transacting parties, and the object of transaction, which moves between the two, must be understood the same. Now, this is also very essential to classicism.
Yes.
Any kind of classicism. It's true of architecture, old architecture also. It's true of old painting, certainly of old music, dance, Bharatanatyam. Now, the balance between the known and unknown of a raga is a handsome sentence. It just means possibilities. What is the difference between a man who wasn't given his thinking or imagination to a raga. Normally a practitioner, sometimes a very good listener, connoisseur, and the bus conductor. You both know classical music, as they do in, say, Dharwad, Pune, Kolkata sometimes. Both know the raga. One of them is pushing, he's giving greater attention, greater effort. The raga is staying in his being for a longer period, staying there more powerfully. He perceives more possibilities. And a man who doesn't have time for any kind of reason, he is not able to pay that kind of attention. The raga does not stay with him. Well, he doesn't know that many possibilities of that same raga. And that is the difference between Khan Saab and another sarod player or a singer. You give Khan Saab some rag. I haven't heard him playing Bhopali. I don't think he liked Bhopali. He did play Shuddh Sarang. Oh, how beautifully he played it. And Shuddh Kallan. But having lived with that raga over a lifetime, you would see more and more things in that same raga. Like you marry, you see the obvious things in your wife or your husband, depending on who you are. And over time, these things might disappear. And if that marriage has to last, it does last in most people. There are third quantities which bind you two people together. Apart from father-in-law, mother-in-law, tyrants, unconsciously or semi-consciously, you explore the other person you care for. And you do see that there are many aspects which you didn't look for, which you didn't find in the other person. But be patient, you do. That's all.
Yes, in this long journey, the question is, can you help us understand what your experience has been like in staying with a few ragas and unfolding them over decades? That exploration and what you have called the interplay of the known and unknown, especially in ragas, you developed a closeness with.
With nothing so learned. Maybe once upon a time I was a teacher of English, fairly good one. So I tend to sound dilatory or pompous sometimes. Let me simplify. Let me simplify the same thing. In the beginning, why do I stay with a few ragas? I'd like to, you'd like to, all of us read. We also have dictionaries. Which one of us stays with a dictionary? You use a dictionary. You don't stay with a dictionary.
No.
But you do stay with the poem you like, which haunted you, which haunts you. You do stay with the novel you read, por, উপন্যাস ওখানে গিয়ে সেই বইটা নিয়ে তুই আবার বুঝেছ? So that's what happens. It's the same is true of music. That might change. Music is very dynamic. Life is dynamic if you know. You're changing all the time. You stay with a few ragas at a time for a certain period. You might give it up, not totally, but move slowly from here to there. As Khan Sahib moved from Ni to Sa over a lifetime. Do you sing? Sing. Yeah. So, and this interplay of the known and the unknown is the manner in which you get to know a thing. That's a simple sentence. You see a stone, you know it's a stone. You be patient. You stay with that stone. Maybe you recognize it's a diamond. Or you see it's a piece of charcoal. But you must stay with it for a while. That's all.
You said there's a kind of patience that you learn to take with you to the raga.
Yeah.
If you are patient, the raga will speak to you eventually.
Isn't that true? Should I have to explain it? No, no. I mean, to paraphrase it is to insult it.
Yes, I know.
It's a feeling one gets. I can't spell it. No language has spelling for that. It's a feeling.
Yes. So you have to stay with it.
And all that I'm trying to say, I've said it even before. When you say you know a raga, really? How much? You don't know how much you know of that raga. But if you are patient, the raga has a life of its own. You and I shouldn't think of life as something from a toad to a human being. No, no. A heart beating and liver and kidney functioning. Yes, but beyond that,
Yes.
a certain kind of dynamism,
Yes.
certain electricity all over. That feeling is there, not only in the lightning outside, it's there in us. When anger happens, when love happens, when surrender happens, so when you come to a raga, you know it's chalan. Bhatkhande gives you its chalan. That's the way you know a pretty girl going on the road. But perhaps there's a not so pretty woman waiting here, and you know her. If you are patient, you'll know her more and more. And then, once she finds you want to know her, she will give of her best. Like the raga will give you the raga. Its best to you if it knows you are patient and relaxed and waiting. अरे इधर आओ सारेगामा पता नहीं.
You have said that the historically significant artist extends the possibilities of the art itself.
Yeah.
And you see Ali Akbar Khan Sahib as the inheritor of this tradition-changing contribution in particular. How have you felt this in your own experience in ragas or music in general?
Have you heard gramophone records or something, or musicians themselves playing sarod, mainly sarod, or sitar? In pre-Akbar days, if you take the trouble of doing it, go And listen to great people like Ustad Sakhavat Hussain Khan. Remember that name? Sakhavat Hussain Khan. And there are others also. I don't remember all the names. But this particular name, great man, on that gramophone which my father lovingly taught me how to use, whenever that, my father sometimes used to play that, I would run away screaming. It was dreadful staccato. Then Ali Akbar happened. Ali Akbar Khan happened to this planet. Sarod. And that Sarod branded me for life. Right? That music was not the other music I heard. This was something life-changing. That's what. You get it? You get it? How have I felt this in my own experience? In my life, I felt it changed. Otherwise, I would retired as a happy vice chancellor,
Yes.
teaching Yeats and Eliot. And I would have taught that very well.
Yes. So life changing.
I don't get a pension. I don't have a job. Today, he was telling me, it's good to have something. Yeah, I know. Once you come out of it, you miss it. A regular salary every month keeps you comfortable. Yeah.
So then there are two interconnected questions.
Go on.
Sohan is asking, do you feel it is important for an artist to bear
Now, do you
witness?
feel it's important that Leslie,
That's Leslie, yes, sorry. And Sohan's question, these two are
for an artist to
interrelated.
wait a minute, to bear witness or allow themselves to both see and feel the difficulties of life? I don't know. I don't know. You know, I think in India especially, people tend to think that the difficulty you face in learning an art, for example, is synonymous with your success in the art. That's not true, you know. Some fellow might be a pauper and, you know, he might not get his next meal. And he's learning the same art. A man like Pandit Ravi Shankar was never a pauper, he was very comfortable. His brother rented a house next to Khan Sahab's house, in Alauddin Khan Sahab's house in Mysore, and he was quite comfortable. Now, does that state of living insist that a fellow should never become a good artist? Ravi Shankar is the greatest among them. Khan Sahab was very comfortable in his house, his mother fed him. And there are others, including me, who had very great difficulty finding the next meal. So I don't think it's right. You need not face real difficulties in life in order to get to a certain level of excellence. They come and go.
Yes. So then Sohan asks, is there a strong connection between the musician's experience of life and the music he creates, considering that music is governed by established norms which life may not be following at all? Is its primary source something other than life experiences? Is the
Certainly,
primary?
you know, all art is artificial. There is nothing with the crow cause, that's natural. painting, sculpture, all that is artificial. Human creation.
Yes.
They make some sort of a plan in their heads and then they go on. Etching, hitting, constructing, painting, singing. All right? So there is no direct connection between these two. It might be indirect, but who knows what the indirection is.
So further from that, Sohn is asking, popular music seems to change rapidly and often substantially. You have mentioned earlier that classical music also changes over time, but very slowly and in subtle ways. Is this because music has some by that he means, I'm sure, classical music has some lasting values? Would you
I
like
don't,
to
I
say
don't
something
know. I
about
don't
this?
know about the values. But everything, every art, every science, art and science. Just think of the changes in physics, in chemistry, between the moment of the atom bomb and now. And your language, my language, in the same period. Has my language changed that fast? Or your language changed that fast? Physics has changed very fast. The trains which ran in 1942 and now are very different.
Yes.
Rockets, space shots. And English language, it doesn't change. But it does.
It does.
Very slowly, if you read Shakespeare, if you read Marlowe, Ben Jonson, slight difficulties you have, like sand in your mouth when you're eating a mithai. Did you bring that mithai? Sohan?
I have come from Bangalore, so I could not
Oh,
bring
you
it.
came.
Yes. He will bring.
Pede, Rajkot.
Yes, that's right.
So, the language doesn't change that fast. It does change. The language of Vidyasagar and Rabindranath are slightly different, but then it's the same. Right? And Rabindranath changed the language of a whole people, a whole generation. They spoke Bangla, but it was a different kind of Bangla. Rabindranath changed that. Maybe if he knows, he can say more. Like that. Science, it's a very, very, very general statement. Shows sudden and particular changes very fast. Language is an art. It doesn't move from one thing to another like that, no. Because it's all about the human condition. Everything has to be expressed, created in and for the human being. So it takes time.
Yes. Continual expression, new expression from time to time, but not progress as moving away
Yeah,
from.
I mean, the other thing is, even inside language, there are two things. Any linguist will tell you that. One is the structure of language, and the other is the vocabulary. Your father, I don't know, my father didn't know the word computer. Today, little children play with cell phone and computer and mobile. Which Shakespeare didn't know, my father didn't know. vocabulary. Something is there, and sometimes you take it out. You used to talk about a chest of drawers.
Yes.
Now we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Guruji, generally your views on life is unorthodox, rational, modernist and progressive in nature. But whereas in our classical music, the tradition and customs are very integral part. Is there any clash in your mind in having two different views?
You know, people talk about schizophrenia. So, my mind can accommodate both. My mind, my being. Because I suppose one is a total human creation, art. Total. There is nothing else outside. It's all you, human beings. Whereas life is not your creation. Life happens to you. And then you want to shape yourself, whatever you do, or accept, or reject, or be patient with, in your fashion, or in the fashion of somebody you admire and you respect, and not in the fashion of someone else. Not in the fashion, I want to do something in the fashion of Ustad Ali Akbar Khan, not in the fashion of Hitler. Both he and I are in the same life which is happening outside. But they are structuring their lives in relation to the outside. We are all living under the same sky, same sun. See how you try to shape your life. You try. You're not. You can't completely shape it. You're not God. You're a human being. You're a fellow. You read poetry and then use the bathroom. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So now there are some questions of the relationship between teacher and student. Shogato?
Yeah. Guruji, being your student, I have the question. Teaching and learning, what do you like in a student? Have said attention, humility, atmosphere of church like quiet.
Yeah. So,
What do you like in a student?
what do you want to say? Yes, I certainly do like all that. Is that a question?
Yeah.
I do. I do like. My answer is I do like all that. Yeah.
This is a question from Leslie on relish of a raga. That you have often said that relish of a raga can be difficult to teach or transmit.
This is very important for me. Relish is different from learning. You learn something, you learn squats, or you learn push-ups. Unless you become a wrestler or something like that, doing 500 squats. If you're an ordinary person wanting to take care of your body, you learn it. You even do it well, adequately. Do you love it? You swallow your medicine. You also eat honey. Similar process. but you relish one of those things, not the other. But that's obvious. A child relishes sweet. But we also relish bitter, Karela, and then a mix of bitter and sour and all kinds of these drinks, whiskey, beer. How does that happen? That's what interests me. I try to theorize. It has a social aspect to it. Why do I say Vah to Marwa? Because if I'm Robinson Crusoe, I'll not say Marwa, sung by, say, Mallikarjun Mansoor or Rajeev Taranath or anybody. I see others. Supposing there is another one who is saying, Hare. I have found this difficulty in America mainly. Because here, whether you want it or not, you live in an atmosphere in which there is some music. The vegetable seller, the adhan from a mosque, schoolboys, schoolgirls humming the latest film song, mothers putting their children to sleep, singing lullabies. And people from rural areas, when they talk any language, it could be Bangla, it could be Kannada, it could be Tamil, they have a kind of a sing-song which we reduce as we become more and more civilized. The sing-songness of our lovely sing-songness of talk goes down. It becomes clipped. How do you do? If you're a member of a big club, you don't do that. So I can tap on that when I teach music. I remember teaching Pilu. मेरे बंगले में तुम्हारा क्या काम है? Good Pilu. Yeah, that one. मेरे बंगले में तुम्हारा क्या है? And go on. I can't do that in Los Angeles. Very polite, but absolute stones. Only one or two. I've taught many more people there than here. Because that was my job. 10 years. It's difficult to teach relish to an individual. If Robinson Crusoe was alone, would he have relished beer? He might have relished halwa, peda, not whiskey, not beer, not cigarettes, not Karela. But when he saw somebody or people relishing that, he joins. In the beginning, he doesn't like coughs, sneezes, then slowly. How do I teach relish? I failed 99%. Instruments are a good bridge between two music cultures. If I sing to a non-music culture person, they could be horrified when I do gamaks. They might call the doctor. But if the same gamak comes on the sarod or sitar, they might listen for a bit. Not quite like it, but okay. He's doing something. I think these instruments are especially struck instruments, because board instruments are either very beautiful or, they kill you when somebody plays it badly.
So, having been exposed to other genres of music, do you think that sometimes Hindustani music is restricting you in terms of expression through the sarod?
All music, all art restricts you. And the merit is the freedom that you create, you find amid the restrictions. If you don't have restrictions, you might be screaming like a child, or you must be mewing like a cat. Everything is okay. In music, it doesn't happen. You must sing in tune. You must sing those 7 notes. And if you claim to sing a certain, there must be a match between what you claim. I'm going to sing Bhopali. I will not have Mayani. These are all restrictions. Why not Mayani? It's a democracy.
So this has been a wonderful series of.
You might call it a dialectic relationship.
Yes.
The same is true of the relationship Amadir in our Hindustani music. I don't speak for other musics like Carnatic music, and so I don't know that. No. I now feel that if you want to know Hindustani music adequately, you should know the center of that music. And the center of that music is vocal music. You might actually be a singer, I am, or the music must be all over you. Inside your mouth, it might not come out. The finger wants to get at that music, cannot. The instrument, the ontology, if you like, of the instrument prevents you from doing it. Very crude, you can play up to a certain limit on your sarod, all of your sarod players. And a vocal musician might go beyond that, and you can do nothing. And there are lovely stories. Tansen's daughter choosing a husband. And there was a competition between the suitor, and his name was Mr. Singh and Tansen. Because the daughter had told the father, only a fellow who can beat you, I will consider for marriage. So Akbar, who I think had nothing else to do, called his court and had the flowers ready and had the executioner with the sword ready also. Because the daughter said, if that man loses, it's your choice of punishment, whatever you want to give him. And Mr. Singh is a lovely, lovely instrumentalist. Note for note, everything he played. And Tansen went and went and went beyond the instrument. He can't do it on the instrument. Put it down. So the executioner got ready. Both had to stand before the emperor. Emperor asked, what do you want to do with this fellow? Tansen, after some thought, he said, I'll let him live if he accepts two conditions. What? He must become Muslim. Tansen had become Muslim. He was Pandey something, Brahmin. Then he became Muslim, called Tansen. He must become Muslim. He must marry my daughter. That's why he should become Muslim. And the daughter's name, it runs parallel to Ustad Alauddin Khan. The son's name was Ali Akbar, and Tansen's son was, what's his name? Bilas Khan. The daughter's name was Saraswati. And we instrumentalists, we draw out the thing from Saraswati. Not so much from Bilas Khan, but from Saraswati. Must marry my daughter. He must become Muslim. And this fellow became Naubat Khan. Naubat Khan. Naubat is an instrument. Naubat Khan. That's a story attached. What else?
Yes. Well, that leads us to, because you mentioned Saraswati, it leads us to Annapurna Devi ji. And Shogato has a question on this. Shogato.
Over?
Yeah. Yeah.
Last.
You have learned vocal music as well as the sarod. You were taught by Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, as well as Annapurna ji. Would you tell us something of your experiences as a
That
student?
will take about 1 week more. You know bits of it here and there. Over a lifetime, I have told you.
But this is for the archives, so you must tell again.
But their influences in your
Ki bolle?
their influences in your music and
Now you
your
listen
life.
to my music. You tell me. You tell me if their influences operate. If so, how? And among them, whose and why?
In my humble observation of or perception of Guruji's music, I find that his playing is substantially immersed with Kansap's approach to raga, or Kansap's approach to building up a Vilambit composition. Like he shows that there is a laya and there is, it almost feels like the laya is absent, tal is absent. Suddenly he comes into some. These elements are Kansap's signature that he has imbibed in his playing. And another aspect which I find is he sometimes plays tons which are difficult to play in sarod, and which he has translated them so that they are apt to be played on sarod, which is important. We cannot play the tans like they play in sitar. That it is physically difficult. But I think that influence Guruji has got from Pandit Nikhil Banerjee, not from. Guruji had also learned from Nikhil Banerjee for some time. I think he derives, and he has translated that sitar tans into sarod. You know, we have to, and Guruji often talks about intonation. That is very important. Intonation of sarod. You know, whatever he plays, it has to represent the nature of sarod. You know, being sarod. That's how he has brought sitar elements of Nikhil Banerjee. I mean, substantially Kansab is there. But in addition to that, I find this one element. And as I previously asked, I think he is influenced by the ball patterns of Alaraka Kansab as well. You know, he plays such novel bolkaris. I think that is one which I have observed.
Cross rhythms.
Cross rhythms.
Yeah, very, very synonymous with what Sachin has to say about Nikhil Banerjee's and Ali Akbar Khasab's influence. I feel with Panditji, the Vilambit Gat is where Annapurnaji's influence I can see, especially in rags like Kaushik Kannada, Yaman Kalyan, to have like more and more like extracted from the smaller spaces available, which are really small, but the more juicy movement of music, more vocalized pattern of music. We have had the pleasure of listening to Panditji really extract the entire last bit of juice out of a particular phrase, a particular gat. I think that is more of Annapurnaji's influence on Panditji's playing, in my humble opinion.
Anything more?
If I want to say something more about the ragas of Kansab, which Kansab has created. Now Guruji has a special fondness of those ragas, and unfortunately Kansab is not with us now, and Guruji is slowly pushing the limits of those ragas. He is expanding them. He is giving a new interpretation of those ragas. Ragas like Chandranandan and Madhumalati and the ever toughest raga Gauri Manjari.
But Gauri Manjari, he once refused to play. He said, "No, I don't want to play it today." Yes, I remember.
We often find that many artists even refuse to attempt that raga.
Yes, yes.
If I am not. Very yesterday he was singing that, and he was trying to teach us.
Yes, yes. Wow, how lucky you are. We missed it. So, shall we call it the end of our conversation now? Yes. Thank you very much, Panditji. This was terrific, and it really brought a whole lot of insights for not just for us, but for everybody to whom this will go. Thank you very much.